San Diego, California. Known for its idyllic climate, 70 miles of pristine beaches, and a dazzling array of world-class family attractions, was also once known as a football town. That was until 2016, when the San Diego Chargers moved over 100 miles away to the Los Angeles area and became the Los Angeles Chargers. With the Chargers gone, there wasn't much to look forward to in regards to football. Of course, you had San Diego State, but while the Aztecs have had some successful seasons over the past few years, there's always been a ceiling to it. And the University of San Diego hasn't won a championship since 2006. But a new school has emerged from the rubble of San Diego. San Diego Tech University, formerly of Division III, has made the jump all the way to Division I and will be playing in the FBS this season in the Sun Belt Conference. Welcome to the San Diego Tech Spartans Dynasty. What is going on, beautiful people, and welcome to the San Diego Tech Dynasty here on NCAA Football 14. It's been quite a while since NCAA Football 14 has been on the channel, but it is back, and this will be my most immersive series on this channel to date. And while this isn't one of those hardest rebuild ever type series, this is still going to be a pretty tough rebuild. Not a single player on this team is over 69 overall. Nice. But I'm going to be putting heavy restrictions on how many players I can sign, which type of players I can sign, and much, much more. So we're going to start by introducing you to the head coach of the San Diego Tech Spartans, and it's none other than former Jets middle linebacker CJ Daly. Most of you guys will recognize him from my Jets franchise in Madden 18. Well, he's going to be the head coach of the San Diego Tech football team, and hopefully he'll be able to lead them from the bottom all the way to a national championship or multiple. So I'm going to introduce you to a lot of the main players on this team. First and foremost, we have quarterback Wesley Redd. He's a junior, 6'2", 235 pounds, and he's a bit of an old school quarterback in which he's not extremely athletic. He can move around in the pocket a little bit, but he's mainly just a straight drop back quarterback. But even then, he doesn't have the strongest arm and also struggles with accuracy sometimes. But he's a fierce competitor, and he eats, sleeps, and breathes football. He is a lifelong Chargers fan who really used to idolize Phillip Rivers and still does as well, even though he plays for the Colts now, not the Chargers. But that's who he models his game after. And he is the team captain. Hopefully he'll be able to lead this team to at least one Sun Belt Conference championship in his final 2 years at San Diego Tech. His main backup is going to be Delonte Anthony, who's a redshirt junior. He's 6'2", 205 pounds, and he's more of the athletic type that most teams usually look for. He's got pretty good speed, but one issue that he's really run into over the course of his college career is just run-ins with the police. He's a bit of a party animal, and he actually got caught with marijuana on his possession during his freshman year, and he was arrested and nearly got kicked off the team, but he was just suspended for the rest of the season. But he's changed a whole lot. He's stayed out of trouble mainly since his freshman season, and he's just looking for an opportunity to help out the team any way he can, whether it's as a starter or as a backup, and just running a few option plays here or there. Expect Anthony to get some playing time, although Redd is still the starter. You could see a few packages here or there where Anthony is either running or passing the football. So while these two juniors have 2 more years left with San Diego Tech, the future of the quarterback position is Bastian Iglesias. Now, he grew up a San Diego State fan, but after the Aztecs refused to offer him a scholarship, he decided to sign on with San Diego Tech after they fell in love with his arm strength at one of his high school games. His throw accuracy isn't very good, and he's pretty prone to mistakes throwing the football as well, but he has decent speed and is pretty athletic overall, and again, that arm strength is just out of this world. So Iglesias will eventually end up being the starting quarterback, hopefully. It'll take him a few years to learn behind Redd and Anthony, but Overall, the coaching staff at San Diego Tech is in love with his arm strength, and they think that he is a very raw talent who could be one of the next great college football quarterbacks. Now, he will have some competition in the form of fellow freshman Lincoln Wade, who's actually going to be redshirted after tearing his ACL during summer practices. He was already behind Iglesias on the depth chart overall, but just tearing his ACL really hurt, and the fact that he's more of a West Coast style quarterback with the lack of arm power that he has, but he's a lot more accurate than Iglesias is, so he'll have an opportunity to possibly earn a starting job over the next few years, given he can heal from his ACL tear. So now we move on to the running back position. We have the player with probably the coolest name on the team, Pikachu Jones. Now, his actual first name is Kenneth, but he goes by Pikachu Jones because of his small stature and his love for Pokemon, as well as his electric playing style, similar to the Pokemon Pikachu. At 5'6", 185 pounds, Pikachu Jones is probably the fastest player on the team overall. He is the starting running back, and he's the starting kick returner as well, and he's just so electric. Once he finds a hole, he just speeds right through it, and once he's into the open field, it's damn near impossible to catch him. Now, one drawback to his playing style is he's not great at breaking tackles. He usually goes down after first contact, so don't expect him to truck anybody. And honestly, as a run and pass blocker, he's not very dependable either. And overall, he's actually pretty fragile for the most part. He did suffer a few injuries during high school, but if he stays healthy, he could be one of the better running backs in college football this year. He'll be sharing carries with William Garrett, who's pretty much a polar opposite of Pikachu Jones. He's 245 pounds, standing at 5'11", and is a junior on the team, and he is an absolute force. He's more of a short yardage back. He lacks the speed that Jones has, but where he lacks in speed, he more than makes up with his trucking ability, just running over defenders. He's an absolute Mack truck, and if he gets into the open field, good luck trying to bring him down. Now again, he's not very fast, so speedier linebackers will be able to bring him down. Corners will be able to get him from behind, as will safeties, but he is an absolute load to bring down. Good luck trying to bring him down in short yardage situations. So we do have two other running backs on this team. We have Lionel Waters, who's also a freshman, similar to Pikachu Jones, but he'll be sitting out this year as he learns behind Jones and Garrett. And Javon Burke is the third string running back, who has a lot of speed and is actually better at breaking tackles than Pikachu Jones is, but still isn't great. But we'll see him get some carries as well this year. At fullback, we got Adam Clark, the junior, starting. And he's a bit of a Swiss Army knife. I mean, he can run the ball, he can catch the ball, and he can block pretty well. He doesn't really do anything spectacular, but he's kind of a jack of all trades, master of none at the fullback position. Behind him, you have John McNeil, who is a senior right now. He's similar to Adam Clark, only a little slower for the most part. Maybe you'll see both of these guys get some playing time, but McNeil is definitely a lot slower, so Clark will be the starter at fullback. So now we take a look at our starting receivers. First, we're going to go with Cedric Preston, the redshirt freshman. He's 6'2", 195, and he's mainly a route running receiver. He's not actually very fast to be completely at all, and pretty much does everything else pretty okay. But he is going to be the top receiver on the team. He did excellent in the spring game, and he did even better during summer practices. And Coach Daly feels comfortable enough with him to make him the number one receiver on the team. I mean, even though he's not the best route runner in the world, you can see some of his routes are just super crisp, and he's good at getting separation from corners, even though he's not the fastest receiver in the world. He just knows how to make good plays, honestly, and you're going to see another one right here where he just lays out for this catch. Even after a very long and strenuous practice, Cedric Preston is going to be your number one receiver on this team. Again, he's a jack of all trades, master of none, really, at the receiver position, but he does everything pretty well overall. So now at the number 2 receiver position, we have our speed demon in Jeremy Slater. He is a true freshman, and he's probably one of the faster players on this team. Obviously not faster than Pikachu Jones, but as far as these receivers go, he's definitely one of the faster ones we have. If you're looking for somebody to throw bubble screens to or to throw drag routes to, honestly, Jeremy Slater's the guy to go to, as he's pretty fast, and his routes are pretty decent as well. His main issue is if the defense is running press coverage against him, he just has a horrible time getting off the press. But when he's in the open field, he can definitely get some yards after the catch. And it's going to be fun to see what he can do in this San Diego Tech offense. So the number 3 receiver on this team is going to be junior Cliff Battle. He's 5'10", 190. And if you think Slater's fast, you got to see Cliff Battle in the open field. I mean, this man has speed that definitely rivals Pikachu Jones, and he's a much smoother route runner, I would say, than Slater is. He has better hands than Slater as well. The problem is he just doesn't jump as high, and he's a little shorter as well, and just doesn't have the strength that Slater does, which is why you'll see him playing on the inside a whole lot, and you won't really see him in running situations either, because expecting him to run block just probably isn't a realistic expectation of him at this point in his career. But you can throw the ball deep to him. He can burn a corner if need be. I mean, if you need a big catch on third down, he can definitely come up with it, as you see right here. Overall, Cliff Battle, just one of the better receivers on this team as far as speed, and he's one of the leaders on this offense as well. We'll just have to see what he does in his final 2 years at San Diego Tech. So now looking at the other receivers on the team, you got senior Zach Harris, who's 5'9", 169. He's just been that senior that isn't great, so you'll see him get some playing time here and there. Rodney Rivero is coming off a torn ACL, just doesn't have the speed that he once did, so you'll see him get some playing time, but don't expect too much from him. Prince Jared is a redshirt sophomore. He's 5'11", 209 pounds, and he is a developing prospect for this team. He probably won't play too much except in garbage time situations. Marquand Jasper is a true freshman who'll be sitting out this year on a red shirt. He'll be practicing with the team, but it'll just be a learning year for him. And then Antoine Joyner is pretty much just a scout team receiver at this point. He's a former walk-on who earned a scholarship and probably isn't the best football player in the world, but he's a good scout teamer. So now we go to the tight end position, where we are led by sophomore Samuel Laramie, who's 6'5", 223 pounds. He played wide receiver in high school, but San Diego Tech just kind of deemed him way too slow to play wide receiver, so he moved over to tight end, but he has all the skills of a receiver. He's a great route runner, has very good hands, and he doesn't really get jammed at the line of scrimmage too often. His problems really come with blocking for the most part, although you see right here he's pretty good at clearing the hole depending on what the matchup is, and right there he turns the end inside. He has his moments where he can be a good blocker, and he's a very raw run blocker overall, but he definitely needs some work in that regard. Aiden Hawthorne is more of the blocking tight end on the team. He's not very fast. He's okay at route running and is okay at catching, but his main forte is blocking, so he'll be the number 2. And then you have Mason Lofton, who's actually the fastest of the 3 tight ends, but just is not a very good blocker at all, so that's why he probably won't get too much playing time outside of being in goal line packages. So now we move to the offensive line, and we start at left tackle with the 6'7", 345-pound monster known as Orlando Williams. He is one of the strongest offensive linemen we have here, but he's not very fast and does have to work on his pass blocking a bit. His backup will be David Atkins, who's smaller than him at 275 pounds and is a sophomore. He's an even worse pass blocker, so good luck, Wesley Red. At left guard, we got Drew Gorman as the starter. He's a pretty balanced blocker for the most part at 323 pounds, 6'6", and he's pretty strong as well, just like Williams, but we'll have to work on getting a little bit faster. His backup will be Joe Pearson, who's more of a finesse blocker, not as strong as Gorman, but he's a bit more of an impact blocker, and he could be fighting for some playing time this year. Then we have Don Nixon, who is kind of just a scout team player for the most part. Moving on to center, you got Tim Wilson, who's 6'4", 299 pounds, and is a redshirt senior, so this will be his last season no matter what. Not a very fast player at all, but is pretty balanced as a blocker for the most part, and he is pretty much the captain of this offensive line. His backup will be John Morris, who has been a 5-year player. He was a redshirt freshman and just never really became more than a scout team player. Maybe in a pinch he can get some playing time here. But now we move to right guard, and we got senior Drew Gaddis, who is probably the most well-balanced offensive lineman you have here. He's not crazy strong. He doesn't have crazy good technique, but he does what he can at the right guard position. His backup is going to be redshirt freshman John Webb. He's a developmental player for the most part. His technique isn't great, but he has pretty good strength, and his acceleration is pretty good as well. He could be something special down the road. Our starting right tackle will be Mark Kirby, who's one of the better players on this team overall. He is definitely more of a mauler type right tackle. His specialty is run blocking, so you're going to see a lot of runs to the right. And then the backup, Phil Parham, who can pretty much play any of the 5 positions on the offensive line. He's a very good run blocker, very good impact blocker, and he could start at right guard possibly, or even be a third tight end in a goal line set. So now move to the defensive side of the ball, and it begins with team captain Jeff Roach, now a true senior, 6'2", 280 pounds. He's not really an ideal fit for a 4-3 defense, but he works well enough in the system. He's not the best pass rusher in the world, but he is pretty good at stopping the run, as you see him just catching Pikachu Jones in the backfield. His main issue, sometimes he kind of over pursues the play like he did right here, but when you got guys like Wedge Porkins in the middle, that's okay. Roach is the leader of this defense, especially the defensive line, and looks to have a big senior season this year. His heir apparent is sophomore Rodney Parsons, who's 6'3", 271. He's a little on the heavy side for a defensive end. He might end up having to move inside in this 4-3 scheme, but he's good at getting off of blocks, and he's actually a better pass rusher than Roach overall. It's just Roach knows the playbook and is a lot more aware. If you think Roach does a poor job of pursuit, I mean, Parsons is a whole lot worse, and that's what's really holding him back. Now, the third string left end, who's actually a redshirt this year, is Jackson Starks. He's another developmental player who it's going to take some time for him to learn the system and to get stronger and faster, but overall, he's a perfect fit for a 4-3 defense. On the other side of this defensive line, we got Cratavius Hartwell, who's a redshirt sophomore, and he's a better pass rusher than Roach is, actually. Overall, Roach is probably the better player, but Hartwell is a very good pass rusher. Does have to improve a bit on his run stopping and just getting off of blocks, but opposing offensive tackles are going to have their work cut out for them when they're facing this man. His main backup is right end Steve Wesley. He's 6'4", 244, and probably a better fit in a 4-3 defense than Hartwell is, but he's just not a very good run stopper. He's going to be a situational pass rusher, but maybe in time he can possibly earn a starting job. And then the third right end is Calvin Savage, who will be sitting out this year as a redshirt as he works on getting his weight up. That's a big issue that Coach Daly had. 222 at right end is not going to get you very far in college, so if he can get some muscle on his frame, then Coach Daly will most likely keep him at right end. So now we move on to the defensive tackle position, where we have the big monster in the middle for San Diego Tech. His name is Wedge Porkins. He's 6'5", 390 pounds, and he is absolutely a force on the defensive line. And this isn't just a big boy. He ain't just big for nothing. No. And forget just this team. He might be the strongest player in the NCAA overall. I mean, he is just an absolute force. Anybody who tries to block him one-on-one is more than likely going to lose. You might have to triple team him. Even a double team isn't enough to stop Wedge Porkins. He's an absolute problem in the run game, and his only drawback is obviously being at 390 pounds, he's pretty slow. So don't expect him to be much of a pass rusher. Matter of fact, San Diego Tech probably won't even have him in their nickel and dime packages just to be safe. But when it comes to stopping the run, Wedge Porkins is an absolute monster. And the best part, he's a true freshman, so San Diego Tech gets 3 more years after this one with him. Sean Chapman is the other starter at defensive tackle. He is a senior and has been starting for San Diego Tech for the past 4 years. Now, he's a much better pass rusher than Porkins, obviously just being faster and lighter on his feet, but obviously not as strong as him, but he's still a pretty good defensive tackle in his own right. Nick Dunbar is the pass rush specialist of these 3 defensive tackles. Obviously not as fast as Chapman and not as strong as Porkins, but him being a better pass rusher than Porkins kind of gives him a spot as a nickel and dime player where you'll see him come in for Porkins, who of course isn't really a good pass rusher being as slow as he is. So you'll still see a whole lot of Dunbar, especially in passing situations. Rory Weidman is kind of undersized for a defensive tackle, so CJ Daly is going to look for him to gain some weight or end up moving out to defensive end. We'll have to see what happens there, but he's a pretty raw, talented defensive tackle. And then Michael Norwood is the 5th defensive tackle, and he's also a guy who can get some playing time as well, spelling Chapman and Porkins. He's not a great pass rusher and kind of struggles with getting off of blocks as well, so he'll probably not get too much playing time, but you will see him here and there. So now we move to the linebacking core, and it starts with left outside linebacker Jonathan Dalphon, who is an import from Canada, from Montreal, Quebec, Canada to be exact. And honestly, he's just a French kid trying to prove that he can play American rules football after playing Canadian rules football for so long. And he's got his opportunity with San Diego Tech. He is a pretty fast linebacker. His zone coverage is very good as well, and he's great at tackling. His main drawbacks are his run defense could be a bit better, although he has pretty good pursuit. And he's not as strong as you'd want a linebacker to be, and his hit power is kind of lacking. But if he can improve on all that, expect him to be a force at outside linebacker. You got Brady Douglas behind him, who actually lost his starting job to Dalphon. And he's a pretty balanced outside linebacker. He's kind of a jack of all trades but master of none. And he lost his job because he just wasn't a very good zone coverage linebacker over the past few years. So he'll try to earn his job back from Dalphon, but it's just not looking very good for him right now. But he can at least contribute on special teams and maybe come in to spell the other linebackers as well. Then we have senior Warren Cooper, who's also going to be competing for playing time at left outside linebacker. Dalphon is going to be the starter, but Cooper has a chance to get some playing time at all 3 linebacker positions. He's another jack of all trades, master of none guy, and his pursuit's pretty good. He's just not very fast for a linebacker, which is why Dalphon is going to be the starter over him. So we got another freshman starter at linebacker. In the middle, we got Joker Jensen. Now, his real name is Jonah Hilton, but he wanted to get away from his family's wealth, their notoriety, and the spotlight, and just make a name for himself without his family's help, without living in the shadow of his family, and has taken on a new name after his parents agreed to pay for him to get a name change. And almost immediately, he made his presence felt at San Diego Tech's summer practices, just running down running backs and overall just being an absolute nuisance while playing scout team. So much so that he's now the starting middle linebacker for San Diego Tech. And tackling and play recognition are his bread and butter. He's also a heavy hitter as well. The problem is he's just not very athletic. He does fly around, but he's just not very fast, and his jumping's not great, and he has to get better at coverage. But Joker Jensen is going to be an absolute problem. Once he gets his weaknesses a little stronger, he's going to be an absolute force at middle linebacker. Then you have Brennan Hoyt, who is behind him, backing him up. At the redshirt sophomore is actually pretty good at block shedding and pursuit, and is actually a bit faster than Jensen is. It's just Jensen knows the plays better. Hoyt really struggled with the playbook this past year, and now he is going to be backing up Jensen, We'll have to see how long that lasts, however, because Hoyt is definitely a pretty good middle linebacker, and he was a starter last year, just lost the starting job to Jensen. We'll have to see if he can get it back this year. And then the third string middle linebacker is Leonard Thibodeau. He's mainly just a scout team guy for the most part, just not an athletic linebacker at all, and he just struggles with the playbook a whole lot. He struggles when he's in games, like getting off of blocks and whatnot, so he's not going to get a ton of playing time over the next 2 years, but he's a serviceable guy. He's a team player. He helps the team out any way he can when he's on scout team, and he definitely deserves a lot of credit for that at very least. So to complete the trio of linebackers who are freshmen, we got Kendrick Washington. He's 6'4", 205 pounds, so a little bit undersized for the linebacker position, but he plays with a ton of heart, and he just flies around the field as well. I mean, as you can see right here, he's very good at reading run blocks and whatnot. He's able to get in there, tackle running backs. Not the fastest guy in the world, but his tackling is very good, as is his pursuit. His coverage can be a bit better, as he does blow coverage sometimes, but overall, he has a lot of potential and a very high ceiling. I can't wait to see what he does this year with San Diego Tech. Paul Davis is the backup, and he's more athletic than Washington, but overall Washington's just the better prospect at linebacker. Davis is also pretty undersized at 6'1", 202 pounds, so he has to get his weight up a bit. But he was redshirted last year, and this year he looks to get some playing time, at least as a special teams player. So now we go to cornerback, where we have a little bit more experience as far as college goes. First, we got Eric Buckley, who's a pretty balanced corner. His big issue is he's not very fast, so faster receivers are going to burn him this year, but he's good in man and zone coverage for the most part. Then we got Robert O'Connor, who is the number 2 cornerback. He's a bit faster than Buckley is, but sometimes just makes mental errors that really end up costing his team a lot of yardage and whatnot. So as long as he can stop with the DPIs, and as long as he can stop with the holding calls and just blowing coverages, he'll be fine this year. Then we got Patrick Matthews, who's the slot corner at 5'9", 190 pounds. He's the fastest of these three and is pretty good overall in coverage. Doesn't make as many mental errors as O'Connor does, but the slot is pretty much his spot of expertise. Then the dime corner is going to be Braden Woods, who is actually pretty good in coverage for the most part and is pretty athletic. Sometimes he just doesn't recognize plays right away, which is why he doesn't start as of right now. And we got Jaron McClain, who's going to be sitting out this year as a redshirt. He's just going to learn behind the top 4 corners and whatnot as he develops towards being a starter one day, but I like his upside a whole lot. And then last but not least, we have BJ Alexander, who again has just mainly been a scout teamer during his entire tenure at San Diego Tech. Now we go to the safety position, and we have starting strong safety Brad Wilson here. He's more of a cover safety, but he's not very good at covering tight ends at the same time, at least not one-on-one. He's more of a zone guy, and he can come up and hit running backs, receivers, or anything like that, but just don't expect him to go one-on-one with a tight end and have much success. He's not very good in man coverage. His play rec could be a little bit better, same with his awareness, but he's very good in zone coverage. And Brad Wilson does have 2 more years after this one as a sophomore, so we'll have to see how he develops over the next 3 years. Right behind him is redshirt freshman Tyler Russell, who's 5'11", 203, and overall his coverage isn't very good at all. He is a little bit better in man than Wilson is, and is probably better at covering tight ends than Wilson is. And honestly, he could probably play some sub linebacker if the situation calls for it. Last but not least, you got Nelson Jordan, who just isn't very good in coverage in general, and he was redshirted last year, has gained some weight, and is starting to learn the playbook a little bit more, but he looks to be a scout teamer for the most part this year. So now we go to the free safety position, and we have Mike Dukes, the junior, starting. He's pretty good in man coverage for a free safety, And obviously he's pretty good in zone coverage as well. Just kind of struggles with play recognition from time to time, and sometimes he just gets caught looking in the backfield a little too much. His backup is Derek Fenton, who's more athletic and is actually a better man coverage safety than any of the other safeties we have on the team. Just not very good in zone, which is why he's not starting. Then you have Byron Swain, who is not going to be redshirted this year, actually. He's pretty good in zone. It's just his play rec and awareness isn't very good at all, which is why he's probably not going to get a whole lot of playing time right away. He might end up getting redshirted as well. Last but not least, we have Cornell Delton, and he's going to need some time developing, if we're being completely honest. So he'll be a redshirt, and he'll be playing a lot of scout team for the Spartans. Now we go to special teams, and the punter is Brad Paris. He's a junior, doesn't have the best leg, and honestly isn't very accurate as a punter, but he's the best that we have for now. And the kicker is redshirt freshman Chris Crompton, who has a hell of a leg, but he's not very accurate, so you're going to see him miss a ton of kicks this year. So now we're going to take a look at the schedule, and San Diego Tech going to open up the season against San Diego State every year if we can help it. But then you've got two rough games early on as they head to Oregon, then they head to Oklahoma before a week 4 bye. Then they host Troy, head to Georgia State. Then they play South Alabama, then play UL Monroe and Appalachian State on the road. Then to end the season, they play at home against Western Kentucky and Louisiana, then end it with Texas State and UTSA on the road. So just so you guys know, the conferences are going to be looking a whole lot different than they do IRL. A lot of different teams are in different conferences, like Clemson is actually in the SEC now, but we'll delve more into that before the first game of the season, next video. I don't know about you guys, but I'm super pumped to get this season started for San Diego Tech. This is going to be my most immersive series on this channel yet, and I hope you guys are ready for all the storylines I'm going to bring to you guys and everything else in between. I just can't wait to get this series started. If you guys are pumped for it, make sure you guys smash that like button, hit the sub button if you're new to the channel, leave a comment down below on what you think San Diego Tech's going to do this year record-wise. Playing in the Sun Belt, of course. I mean, it's probably one of the weaker conferences overall, if not the weakest, but honestly, this isn't a very good team. I don't know how many wins we're going to get this year, especially playing Oregon and Oklahoma on the road. We'll just have to see. But let me know what your record predictions are down below. And make sure you guys turn your notifications on to join the notification gang. That way you never miss an episode of this series or any of my other series on the channel. And if you want to see more from the channel, click on the playlist right in front of you.